In this video, I'm going to cover a few different tools and additional items you can use to get a really clean, slick edge. These include just using water, this material that's a burnishing gum called Toconol, a leather conditioner. We're also going to talk about the importance of applying dye before you do your slicking and the different tools you can use to apply a slicked edge on a piece of leather. Include the piece of glass, an antler, the wood or metal end of this tool, and wooden slicker, which is one of the more common styles. There's also a machine mounted slicker that you can use, and we'll cover all those items throughout this video. There are a few things you can do to really make the edge of your leather pop. One of the most important ones is a clean cut. The cleaner to cut, the easier it is to get a polished edge on the leather. What I like to do in order to achieve that is make sure I use a sharp blade, and then afterward I will apply water to the edge of the leather to soften the fibers and allow me to slick the edges down using one of the tools that I will show you in the next couple steps. After I apply water to these edges, I'll let them soak in for a few minutes to soften the edges. And then next I'll use a sanding drum, such as this 220 grit sanding drum on the end of my Dremel here. I also have a grinder mounted sanding drum that's also 220 for much larger pieces. The next step I like to do after soaking the edges with some water is to run a beveler across all the corners, or rather the edges of the leather. This actually takes down that sharp 90-degree edge and rounds it out. This will actually aid in the look of the final appearance on the leather. After I have beveled all the edges, on most of my finished projects, I like to have a dyed edge to help contrast with whatever color that the final product will have. If you want to have a neutral color, you can skip this step. But in this step here, I'm going to use this paint pen to apply dye. I use Angelus Black on all these edges prior to applying any kind of slicking tool to the leather itself. As you can see with this paint marker, it makes it nice and easy to get a consistent lay down of dye into the pores of the leather before you start slicking the edges. The first tool that we will try after applying water, sanding, beveling, and preloading the edges with dye is a wooden slicker. You'll notice I have two different ones here because this one is used on dyed edges and this one is used on edges with no dye applied. I take the slicker, find the slot that fits it best, and just carefully go back and forth. The goal here is to lay down all the fiber until you get a nice, smooth, slick edge. It doesn't require a lot of pressure. If you apply too much pressure, it can actually cause it to mush down and not have a very good looking appearance. The next tool that we'll try is a smooth metal edge. In this case here, this is a tool for molding holsters. I like to use the smooth edge on this here to apply just a little bit of pressure Just as you saw with the wood slicker, you're just trying to lay down the fibers so you get a fairly smooth edge. The next tool is an old piece of antler. This came from a hunting buddy of mine, and I use these smooth edges here to apply a burnish to the edge of the leather. You can actually hear it trying to catch on the leather that's a little bit rougher than the last two pieces you saw, but you still get the same results by applying consistent pressure across the edge. The next tool is the same tool you saw earlier, except for I'm using the wooden end. Just apply a little bit of pressure using the smooth side of the wood, and just work those fibers over until they're nice and smooth and glossy. The next item to show you is a piece of glass. This is actually a airbrush jar, and this actually worked perfectly for this type of application. This gap right here happens to be the right size for what I'm doing, and it's nice and smooth. You can take the glass and start burnishing the edges, just like the other tools you saw earlier. You may have noticed earlier in the video, I used water to soften these edges. And on some leather, especially the more economical cuts, the edges tend to be pretty rough. So one thing you could do is apply beeswax. You can also apply a leather conditioner here that contains some wax in it. Just apply a very liberal amount on the edges, not so much that you'll splatter it all over the rest of the leather. Just enough to cover the edges. And you can use a tool of your choice to work that conditioner into the edge there, and that'll give it a nice smooth polish as well. It'll actually make the edge shine a little bit more than the previous methods. Another material you can use is called toconol. This is a burnishing gum. It's sold mainly as an edge finish for non-vegetable tanned leather, but I've actually found that if you apply it just a little bit, work it into the edges, you can actually use this as a burnishing material as well. With toconol, sometimes it takes a couple of coats. I'm applying a little bit here on this end, just to make sure I have proper coverage. I may have missed a little spot here earlier. And gently rub this. Now toconol is great for chrome tan leathers and exotic leathers when you need to get a smooth edge, but do not have the same results like you would get with vegetable tan, where they're more porous and they tend to be a little spongier. It works really well. One thing I will note of additions like this here, if you plan on having the rest of your piece dyed a particular color, dye them first before you do your edges. Otherwise, these materials here can actually act as a resist and prevent your dye from properly penetrating the leather and give you a consistent color all the way through the whole thing. Another method of burnishing is with this piece of cocobolo wood. This came from the leather machine company, mounted to their bench grinder style motor that has variable speeds and multiple slot sizes for different edges. This is actually ideal for large volume or large pieces such as belts, holsters, knife sheaths, bags, larger items that would probably take too long to do manually. So when using any kind of motorized slicking devices, such as this one here, you have to remember not to lean into the wheel, applying too much pressure to the edges. It will cause them to get flat, kind of mushroom out. So just a very gentle pressure is all you need to get a nice slick edge like this. The next item you can use, which also makes for great awkward conversations at your local drugstore or grocery store, is KY jelly. This is a water-based jelly that can be used for slicking edges, and it's actually quite effective. As you can see, it's pretty messy. I would recommend doing this on an item that's already been dyed. This way you don't create these dark spots in your leather. A slicker of your choice, and apply light pressure back and forth. You can achieve a very shiny edge using this product. Throughout this video, I have demonstrated a few different techniques and tools to help you achieve a slicked edge on a piece of leather. I covered the use of water, burnishing gum, leather conditioner, and my ever favorite conversation starter at the local drugstore, KY jelly. The tools I used throughout the video included wood slickers, an antler, a metal tool. This could be a screwdriver or any other type of metal tool, the handle of mini tools, and a piece of glass. If I missed anything, or if you have suggestions on things I can try or demonstrate, feel free to leave me a comment in the comment section below. I look forward to making more videos, and hopefully you'll join me. See you soon.